In August 1945, a dying German soldier told a Polish priest the precise coordinates of an armored train buried beneath Lower Silesia. The priest recorded what he heard. The Polish government has been quietly excavating in that region ever since. The soldier's deathbed account was not treated as a curiosity. It was treated as a lead. Lower Silesia in the summer of 1945 was a landscape still reorganizing itself, German civilians fleeing west, Soviet forces holding the eastern approaches, Polish administrators stepping into towns they had never governed. In that administrative chaos, certain information moved carefully. Certain information was written down and filed in places where it would not be easily found. The priest's account was one such piece of information. It entered a bureaucratic system that was, even then, deciding what to look for and what to leave buried. What that system eventually uncovered about the final months of the Nazi administration in Lower Silesia is recorded in declassified files from the Polish Institute of National Remembrance. By late 1944, as Soviet forces pressed westward, the Nazi state began moving. Significant state assets and SS holdings were transferred into the region in a systematic pattern. The transfers were not random. They followed existing infrastructure, rail lines, road networks, administrative channels already established by years of occupation. Lower Silesia had been chosen early. It was deep enough behind the lines, and it had tunnels. Książ Castle sits above Wałbrzych on a sandstone ridge. The SS requisitioned it in 1943. Albert Speer's organization, the same body that managed armaments production and forced labor across occupied Europe, undertook construction projects at the site. The precise nature of those projects was not recorded in any document recovered after the war. What Polish geological surveys detected in 2016, working near the castle, were tunnel networks underground. They were inconsistent with any known wartime infrastructure. The surveys did not find the tunnels on any existing map. The surveys found them with instruments pressed against the earth, reading what the earth still held. The wealth that may have moved into those tunnels had a documented origin. Operation Reinhard was the Nazi program to liquidate Jewish assets across occupied Poland. By 1943, an estimated 178,745 kilograms of gold, jewelry, and currency had passed through SS Economic Administrative Main Office accounts. That figure appears in surviving ledgers. It represents what was recorded. Accounting under those conditions was not always complete. The wealth that passed through without documentation is, by definition, absent from the records. In February 1945, the Reichsbank shipped 100 tons of gold reserves westward from Berlin. That transfer is recorded in Bundesbank archives. Post-war Allied accounting teams worked through the recovered material with considerable thoroughness. They could not account for everything. Between 2 and 3 tons of documented bullion remained unrecovered, unlocated. The distinction matters. This was not suspected gold, not estimated gold. This was gold that appeared in records on one side of the war and did not appear in records on the other side. In September 2015, 2 men notified the Polish government formally. Peter Koper and Andreas Richter stated they had located a buried armored train near Wałbrzych. They had used ground-penetrating radar. Under Polish treasure law, they filed a claim for 10% of the fine's value. The notification triggered a legal process and a geological response. Polish authorities began examining the site. What they found, or did not find, entered a record that has remained carefully incomplete. The anomalies detected near the site were real. The geological data did not resolve cleanly. What the instruments suggested was a space beneath the ground, a void or a structure or a disturbance in the soil consistent with something buried under pressure and time. Excavation in 2016 did not produce a train. It produced questions about the limitations of the equipment, the depth of the search, and the composition of the ground in that region. The search was suspended. The suspension was described as temporary. The file on the Koper-Richter claim did not close. Polish authorities did not declare the matter resolved. They declared it ongoing. That is a specific bureaucratic distinction. A closed file has a conclusion. An ongoing file has a reason to remain open. The reason, in this case, was not sentiment or national mythology. It was the geological data that had not been explained. The anomalies remained anomalies. No subsequent survey has produced an alternative account of what caused them. The broader record also remained open. The INP files confirmed that assets moved into Lower Silesia. The Bundesbank record confirmed that gold moved out of Berlin. The SS construction record at Książ Castle confirmed that something was built underground that was never put on a map. Each of these facts was documented separately. None of them was connected by a single document that said plainly where the material went. That document, if it existed, has not been found. In 2016, a researcher working in a regional archive in Lower Silesia located a reference in a late-war SS administrative log. The reference was to a transport. The transport was described only by its route eastward into the mountains in the final weeks of 1944. The log did not specify contents. The destination was listed by a code that has not been matched to any known wartime facility. The researcher submitted the finding to the Institute of National Remembrance. It was accepted into the record. The priest who wrote down the soldier's words in August 1945 did not know what was in the train. He recorded coordinates. The coordinates were specific enough to be taken seriously. They were not specific enough to have produced a result in 80 years of searching. What is buried beneath Lower Silesia may be gold, or tunnels, or the absence of both. But the documents that keep this file open are not the product of myth. They are the product of people who moved things carefully, wrote certain facts down, and left others unwritten, and who understood, at the very end, exactly what they were doing.